That's a straight question now. Was the trainer completely cleared?
Could I?
Frank,
Could I?
Comment on that?
Could I, while
Yes,
think of an answer to your second question, with regard to the achievements in the organisation, and personally I had nothing to do with them, by the way. Like, there was 5,000 samples tested in the lab. There was new legislation brought in to control the outcome, so that if a dog had adverse findings, it's now being dealt with.
They're regulations, I think, not legislation. Well, was it regulations brought in by the minister, or was it new legislation?
Some of them were brought in by the organisation itself. They have established an international scientific committee. SIS contracts were signed in December 15. The total was up 5%. The attendance was up 4.1% per meeting. Gate income was up, and food and beverage was up 11%. So there are some achievements in the organisation, Deputy. I'll pass the other question to the Chairman.
I accept there are some achievements. I have no problem with that. There are some achievements. My question is in relation to the serious reports that have been done on every level, from animal welfare to breeding to illegal substances to governance. They're my questions. So we have a mass of recommendations. I would expect, and I say this to every organisation, it would really help ye and us. Look, these are the recommendations. This is what we've implemented. That would give us confidence in a board. Now, my train of thought, I'm going back to the case.
Sorry, just in relation to the case. Yes. Sorry, I just had to clarify because it predates me, so I needed to check. Yes, the trainer was exonerated.
Great. And so there was a shadow hanging over the trainer for 2 years, although the dog with the illegal substance was under the control of Bard na Gan. Isn't that right? Is that right? Okay. And so there was a 16-day hearing, I think, before the control committee. Is that correct? Okay. And then there were High Court proceedings, which had to be settled. Yeah. And you've outlined the cost of those. Now, my question in relation to those is that the trainer was completely exonerated. It happened under Bard na Gan's watch. In relation to the settlement, were you prepared to settle that? Was there an offer, Mr. Meany, on your watch that could be settled to save the costs that eventually were incurred?
When the case came before the High Court, the legal advice all along was that we should defend this case. When we came in the final, when we came to the High Court, the legal I suppose what's the word I'm looking for, the legal advice was that we should settle the case.
When was that, Mr. Meany, now?
When we were in the High Court in 2016. 16, yeah.
On the date was listed or something?
So the advice is quite simple, Deputy. At that stage, if this goes to the High Court,
yes, you're
looking at a long, drawn-out process, yes, between expert witnesses in respect of, timing of drugs and when it was taken, etc. And it was very much an economic decision at that stage. The probability of winning, the probability of losing, the cost of the case, if you win, the recovery costs and all the rest of it.
Just one second. The 16-day hearing before the control, or whatever it's called, the control committee, 16-day hearing, isn't that right?
I presume it is. I'm not.
Okay. And separately then there was a High Court action. When did that come up for hearing?
I think the High Court action was, I think it was listed in August, September 2015. Okay, Mr.
Meany, it was on your watch?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, so is that correct, roughly? I'm not holding you to the day now, but was that when the case was listed for hearing? And so, prior to the case being listed for hearing, was there an approach to you to settle that case?
To me personally?
To you personally, yeah.
No, there was no approach to me as far that I'm aware of. A number of people would have suggested to me that we should settle the case, but I felt it wasn't. Obviously, it wasn't my decision, and the board and myself, our decision was being governed by the legal advice.
No, just Mr. Meany, now, just to be careful, I want to be fair to you, and obviously there's only so much you can disclose, but you're the chair of the board. You already know that the finding of the control committee. Isn't that right? You're aware of the at this point you're fully aware of the finding of the control committee, and the trainer has been totally exonerated. Isn't that right?
The legal.
Just listen to my question now. No fault whatsoever to the trainer. I think yes is the answer to that.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, all right. Because I think it's important, because that person was under a shadow for a very long time, so let's not add to it. So, completely exonerated. No fault whatsoever.
Yes.
Okay. And so proceedings are taken then. And are you saying that the legal advice all along, right up to the day of the hearing, was don't settle?
Absolutely. I don't think the board would take it on themselves to make that call if that wasn't the legal advice.
Okay, and so you're saying you were never approached to settle that in your capacity of chair of the board?
What I'm saying is I'm very clear that people would have said to me we should settle the case.
When you say people now, people represent legal people?
No, not legal people.
On behalf of the plaintiff?
You know, I go certainly 3-4 nights a week greyhound racing. And people, you know, and I would have said it not in my capacity as chairman of the board, but as a layman, if there was an opportunity to settle this case, I would have liked to have seen it happening. I wouldn't want to see the board being exposed to any legal costs.
That's what I'm putting it to you now. You can feel free to disagree with me, but I'm saying unnecessary legal costs were incurred here, right up to the day of the hearing, and that there were opportunities to settle this case, given the facts, well before it came to the High Court. You're free to disagree with me. I'm putting that question to you.
I have no choice to disagree with you, because I was being very much said and led by the board was being very much said and led by the legal advice. And more the executive, I would say, than the board, because the executive was dealing with the case on a day-to-day basis, and it was just coming back to the board for ratification.
You mean the CEO, is it, as the executive?
The CEO, yeah, the CEO.
All right. Okay. In relation to the mediator that's been appointed, when was the mediator appointed, or is that?
The mediator was appointed, Dr.
Is this in relation to Shelburne Park?
Yeah.
He was. I haven't the date in my head at this stage, but it arose from a request from the former Taoiseach Brian Cowan and Ivan Yates to Kieran Mulvey. They suggested that he be approached to mediate between the two sides quite early on in the dispute.
Did that happen?
It did, yes.
And what was the cost of that? Are you free to say, or?
Yes, yeah, 10,000.
How much?
10,000.
10,000. Okay. In relation to the suggestion that AIB moved and they had no choice but to sell, does that mean that all of the property was charged?
Harris Cross was charged, yes. It was given as security.
Harris Cross was charged as security?
Yes.
And what other property was charged as security?
I think all the main stadia that belong to the IGB or secure held by
Seven stadia of the IGB are caught under the bank charge.
Under the bank charge.
Thank you, Water from Kilkenny.
No, Kilkenny.
Water is it?
Water is. Kilkenny isn't IGB. Kilkenny doesn't belong to IGB.
Seven of the stadiums that you own, effectively.
Yeah, Kilkenny. If the committee wants to list it, I can. But it's disclosed in the annual report.
I know Water is. I know Water.
Yeah, it's fully disclosed in the annual report.
So, as a result of a number of bad decisions, and I know that there was a downturn in the economy, and you've said that, but equally, the Indicon report has highlighted that there was very inadequate capital appraisal of the. Just 1 second now.
Sorry.
So it wasn't just the downturn in the economy; bad decisions were made. So there's a legacy from bad decisions, and then various other properties that have no debts are charged. Is that right? As a result of the bad decisions, plus the downturn in the economy, the other property is charged. And AIB move in and say, we're selling the golden egg here, Harold's Cross.
Yes, essentially, yes.
Is that essentially?
Yeah.
And I think Mr. Brady or Mr. Meany, you did say last week that that was the sacrificial lamb, Harold's Cross, or words to that effect, a sacrifice was made, or victim. You did, and you agreed.
I'm not sure I agreed,
I thought you did.
But I didn't disagree.
Okay, all right. Now, if we come back again to the Indicon report, it did not say sell Harold's Cross.
The disposal of assets. Or
It
look at
recommended the
disposal of
consideration
assets.
of the disposal of a number of assets, including, and it lists out.
Yes.
It does not say sell. So it looks like AIB said sell Harold's Cross.
No, well, we had decided as a board, when I came on the board in December 2015, the decision had been made that we should dispose of Harold's Cross.
Why?
That decision was reaffirmed by the new board that I was on.
Oh, it was made by a previous board in 15.
Yes.
What date, sorry, just for the record, what date was the decision made?
When was the Endicon report?
October. It goes back to the previous board adopted 27 recommendations from Endicon, including the creation of an asset disposal strategy and mentioning Harold's Cross. So that's October 14.
What date did the board decide to sell Harold's Cross, though, officially? If it was two board decisions, it was made twice. Is that what you're saying?
It was certainly affirmed during my time on the board, and there'll be a record of that as to what date it was.
Sorry, Deputy Workman.
The decision in principle made initially that we would accept the 27 findings of the Endicon report, and there's a board minute to cover that after the Endicon report.
Accept the recommendations in principle. That's what you confirmed earlier on.
Yes.
So that's the decision you're referring to, Mr. Nyan, is it?
Well, I wasn't on that board, but I was informed when I came on the board in December that there had been a decision made to sell Harold's Cross. That was discussed by the new board, and that decision was affirmed.
Well, in fact, there wasn't a decision.
I don't know. I was informed that there was.
Okay, so we don't know, but what I know from
there'll be a record.
Well, no, what I know from the answers today, that at some stage you endorsed the recommendations, which were all of those recommendations of Endicon, isn't that right? Yeah, okay. And so there were other recommendations in Endicon. Okay. Which ones of those did you implement in terms of assets?
There was 4 separate assets mentioned in Endicon. Okay. One of those was the old head office in Henry Street.
Yeah, and that's been sold.
That's gone, yeah.
Cork.
Cork it's a small parcel of land in Cork, and I mentioned the last day there's an issue with a CPO that might make it even smaller, so that's a matter that's under consideration. Oh. And there was another piece of property in respect to some office space in Shelburne Park.
Yeah.
But none of those assets on their own would have achieved anywhere near the value that would have impacted.
So did you look at all of those assets and come up with a valuation of those assets? And
the valuation in respect to the piece of property in Shelburne Park hasn't been looked at yet. No. And the Cork land, it's in. It wouldn't be prudent to spend some money on a value with the CPO that's gone on. So we'll have to see how that affects the piece of property that's left there. So it's a small piece of property.
So would I be unfair to say you zoned in on Harold's Cross? Other matters didn't take as much of your attention because the crucial thing was paying down the debt and the pressure under AIB. Would that be fair?
Well, we were trying to sell Mealik as well, which is another parcel of ground. But the simple fact of the matter is that Mealik is worth an inconsequential amount of money in respect of the trigger date that was coming with 9th of December.
Yeah. I find that frightening, I have to say, and I know you're putting it down to a legacy, and Mr. Creed, you came back and corrected, which was right. It was $1 million, and then about 900 were spent on development fees and so on, and it's worth 100,000. No one is accountable, landlocked. Was it a floodplain? And so on. And we're asked not to go back there, Mr. Meany, we're asked to go on. But the legacy of all these decisions are absolutely...
Deputy.
Yeah.
So we inherited these decisions. They're going back pre our existence.
What we
tried to do in December 15 when this board came together was to resolve these issues and also to make sure that with appropriate governance structures going forward that these don't happen again.
I appreciate that.
But just to go back to Harold's Cross, just to clear what Harold's Cross is, AIB are very clear that the dischargement of the debt that's outstanding was based on the sale of Harold's Cross. That was the realisable asset that was going to come anywhere near meeting the quantum of debt that was outstanding. Okay. Very clear.
Okay. I understand that, and I understand you inherited. Mr. Meany, you were there before, so you were part of the inheritance that comes forward.
No. Excuse me. The reports that you have there from Endicon and from the Agriculture Committee and the Morris report were all in my time. The building of Limerick and Mealik.
I know, but prior.
Were
absolutely.
all prior. And the debt associated with that.
No, I agree with all of that. However, what I'm saying is all of these reports were on your time, with the exception of the Dalton report. Yeah. 2006. All of these reports point out serious difficulties that continued under your time, Mr. Meany, because all of these recommendations have not been implemented.
Well, particularly on the Endicon, I just don't have an update with me now because I just haven't. But the Endicon recommendations, all 27 of them are completed or are being worked on or require primary legislation.
Okay.
I can actually give you numbers, Deputy, on that. There was 27 recommendations. 24 of them have been implemented.
Has the annual review been implemented? The annual review of the board's not competence, how well you're doing?
Yes.
Okay, so that we'll find an annual review somewhere that says what you...
We started last year. The board members were reviewed, and we had the reviews independently assessed then.
Who assessed? Who did that?
Dr. Purcell.
Okay, and will we see them somewhere, that assessment of the board? Or?
I don't know that. Now, I need to discuss that with the board.
Okay.
The board filled Okay. I need to discuss that.
Okay, you can just, he's pointing at me to stop. So there are just two other things. In relation to the assessment of all, Indicon made a recommendation, or the Agricultural Committee, I'm not sure which, in relation to looking at all racing tracks, seeing what depth they had, what advantages they had, where you're going with them. Has that been carried out?
I don't think it's been carried out as an individual exercise, but every monthly board meeting gets a report on every single track as to how it's performing.
No, there was a recommendation.
Yes, but it happens every single month.
Is there an assessment anywhere that you've carried out, or somebody on your behalf, of all of these racing tracks as recommended that should be done, and where can I find it?
I'm not aware.
Okay, and just in relation to Galway, that land is owned by Bardnagon, is it?
No.
Just explain to me about Galway.
The Galway Show Society owned that land.
Right, and Bardnagon are leasing it, is it?
Long leasehold, sporting lease, long leasehold.
A
long sporting lease. With,
what length?
I think it's 99 years.
Okay.
You'll have to correct me now, but I can't.
And what do you pay for that then?
It's nominal figures. It's nominal.
Nominal.
It's nominal figures.
Right.
6,000 or something like that. It's very small.
Okay.
And there's a sublease then of that land to the IRFU.
Yeah.
On Conroe.
Okay. Just to go back, wasn't it a clear recommendation that you would look at all of your assets, see what was possible? For instance, if we go to the Controller and Auditor General's report, and he gives you a clear audit, I think, with the caution in relation to a going concern, and it's a going concern really because of government assistance, isn't that right? And so, what are the figures for 2016 shown?
The figures for 2016 are broadly similar to what 2015 are reporting. Obviously, as I mentioned there to Deputy Kelly, there has been a reduction in the contingent liability in relation to pension, and the extra prize money has come out as an expense, but it is that there has been an increased allocation from the Horse and Greyhound Fund. There has also, from the point of view in respect of the tracks,
yes.
Since I joined the board, it's been a continuous downward decline. As it was a bit behind last year, a bit behind the previous year again. There has been very much a stabilisation of the trade,
yes.
Even at some of the more rural parts. Even you mentioned Galway. Galway had a fairly okay this year compared to previous years. And what we did see is that we were seeing some significant growth in the Dublin market, duly supported by Shelburne Park.
My question was, the figures for 16, what are they indicating? 15 was barely a going concern. Is 16 showing the same thing, leaving aside the debt?
There's no point in the Bardnagon is reliant on the Horse and Greyhound Fund for the payment of prize money. The only thing that 16, and I don't think it'll be ready, the only thing that 16 might comment on is in relation to the conclusion of the sale of Harold's Cross, which would reduce some of the going concern issues in relation to the bank.
So the reason for a strategic plan and the reason You had a strategic plan, it's run out of date. You've updated a little bit as a result of Indicon. It was highlighted that you needed to look at your strategic plan, you needed to look at all the racing tracks, you needed to look to see what you were going to do with them. That really hasn't been done.
There are financial projections prepared for the next 4 or 5 years as regards where we are with the bank, right? Those projections obviously are forming part of the discussions with the bank. So from that point of view, it's projections, it's not the narrative of a strategic plan. But what is happening at present in respect of the negotiations at AIB would strongly influence where any strategic plan would be directing the organisation.
Just to go back to stakeholders, my last question. This wasn't something that was sort of pulled out of the sky. The stakeholders forum was a strong recommendation. It was recommended that all relevant stakeholders be on it, including the department. That really didn't happen in any formal matter, in any formal way, where you told everyone there's a new forum being set up, we're going to meet on a regular basis, including department officials on it. That didn't happen, did it?
It did. We invited, I accept, I think it was Deputy Kelly maybe that mentioned about somebody mentioned we didn't invite the bookmakers. And there was nothing to that, but we did write to all stakeholders, inviting them in, and the minister himself did attend one of the stakeholders.
Oh, you said that, Mr. I heard that, but the whole point of the new forum was to rebuild trust. Anyway, I've said it.
But in fairness, it wasn't me, but it doesn't matter. It was Deputy Burke, I think. But anyway, it doesn't matter. Or was Deputy Elwood? Deputy, do you want, Mr. Walsh, I think, wants to say something there.
No, Deputy, I'm not sure if I answered you earlier on in relation to the forum. It's been a long day, I can't remember. But the forum was established on a formal basis. There have been 3 meetings. The first meeting was on the 15th of March 2016. A range of representative groups, a cross-section representing the industry, attended. There was an agenda agreed in advance. There were minutes and notes taken at the meetings. The second meeting took place on the 14th of July 2016. Again, cross-section of the industry representative groups attended. And
the minutes of all these meetings.
An agenda in a formal, structured way. And the third meeting took place on the 10th of November 2016. It was attended by Minister Andrew Doyle and other representatives from the department. And again, you had representative groups, different groups attending. And it was a structured, minuted, agenda-led forum. That formal forum exists.
Thank you, Deputy. I think Deputy Elwood has one small